Yes. Okay. So really symbolical or symbol, as you can see, I gave it one little chapter on its own, really to mean that there are writers who use symbol a lot or in sort of an exaggerated way to make the book or the look of the, for example, the short story or the novel very symbolical, to mean really always other things than what is on the page, because the word symbol here really means you use a certain thing to symbolize something else. And that's the idea, to highlight the idea of symbolism. So in fiction, as in poetry, and I think, as I said, in all kinds of literature, writers use that. But as I said, it depends how much you use it, to what extent. So, for example, I say here, symbol in fiction is something important since it leads to the ultimate meaning of, or meanings in fiction. A symbol in a work of literature, for example, I say something that suggests or stands for something else without losing its original identity. Like when you say, as we shall see, for example, in these parables, like when you say the sun symbolizes this, rain symbolizes this, red rose symbolizes this, yellow rose symbolizes that, and so on, the dark or the night or clouds, and so on. So you mean sometimes you use this huge image, for example, of the cloud, or the huge image of the rain, and because you want to sort of, as I say, you don't want to say the thing directly, you use the symbol. And this is the idea: you use something to mean something else, something to mean something else. And this is really the idea, without losing, as I say, without losing the original meaning, because the cloud is a cloud. When you use it to mean, for example, misery, the cloud is a cloud. It'll never be lost. The meaning will never be lost. For example, you can say a symbol is an object, or could be a person, or could be a setting, or could be an event that suggests something else, suggests meanings beyond its literal meaning. Even a person, when you use a name, for example, or a person, like when I said the word Gabriel and the word oak, the character I mentioned before, I think before to you, the name Gabriel and oak, the name Gabriel means really is an angel. And for example, and the word even oak, the name oak also means a very solid, strong tree, kind of tree. You follow, you understand, boys and girls?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm saying even a name or a person or a subject or an object or whatever, they all also could mean, here we say symbol. So notice here I say a person or an event that suggests meanings beyond its literal meaning. It is a device in literature where an object presents an idea. Like, for example, in novels, symbols combine their literal meaning with the suggestion of an abstract concept, and I go on, and then I give you the examples here. When I say there's a difference between image and symbol, an image is associated with certain thing that's stated in the text, whereas a symbol we have to infer the meaning, because symbol is wider and you have to, it's not clear, it's not stated, whereas an image is stated, it's clearly in one word, for example, right? So, but sometimes the symbol is not completely stated, but it's sort of suggested, or you have to infer it yourself. So I say a symbol generally here I say a symbol, especially a non-conventional symbol, is open-ended. That is, we cannot give it one precise meaning. You know, sometimes people say, well, the word snow, you know, to me, for example, it means something, but maybe the word snow for some other people it means something else completely different, for example. And I always say this to people or to my students, you know, the example we say, for example, in Arabic, we say, أثلجت صدري. You know, if you say أثلجت صدري to a European man, to somebody from Europe or somebody from the Scandinavian areas or Russia or all those places where it's very cold, and you say to someone أثلجت صدري, you know, he will be angry. Whereas in our areas, for example, you know, when it's hot, when you say to someone أثلجت صدري, you know, they will love this. So notice here the idea that symbols sometimes they are not always the same thing. Like, for example, the sun or the sunshine. If you describe someone here as sunshine, you know, we say, hello, sunshine. You know, to someone here, for example, you say to someone here, hello, sunshine, you know, maybe she will not like it because sunshine in English means absolutely lovely and positive and beautiful and etc. And it's likable and lovable. Because in England, for example, or in the English context, the sun is very rare, and it's because it's very cold. And when they say sunshine means, oh, lovely, because they want the sun all the time. Whereas here in our area, for example, after this time, if you say to someone sunshine, you know, they will not be happy because sun here is very hot and people don't like it. You know, you see what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah. So here I'm saying examples like sunshine, which suggests happiness, rain, which suggests sorrow, and storm, clouds, etc., etc. So this is really the idea I want to just say here. For example, again, symbolism emphasizes again the question of correctness of interpreting fiction. There is no perfect or even best interpretation of a story. You know, this is the idea. You know, the question always because symbolism is very open, then the interpretation is also open, and you can't say, well, this means this and only this. And that's why here we say, well, that's not possible, because really there's no correct interpretation. And I think that's true. In literature, there's no correct answer, completely no correct answer. You know, there are answers all the time. Okay, so really this is the idea. And I'm saying there's no perfect or even best interpretations of a story. You know, when I say to you, wow, this is lovely, and somebody else say something else, and I say, oh, yeah, wow, it's very lovely again. And you say, come on, doctor, you say this lovely, and to the other one is lovely, and to the other one is lovely, you know? Say, what is the best? Well, I don't know, because really, there are always interpretations, you know, possible interpretations, like in translation. Like in translation, when you say you use a word, somebody else would use another word, somebody else would use another word, and so on. So really here I'm saying different possible interpretations and meanings. And that's true. Really, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, in literature, there's no one single answer. There are no, you know, well, I should say there are answers. There's no one single answer. You know, there's no one single answer. And if somebody says to you, well, this is the answer, you know, in literature, you say, to you, maybe to you, this is the answer, but to me, this is not the answer. You know, so this is really the idea. I'm saying no matter how much we try to examine plot, character, point of view, or symbolism, we will still not achieve the ultimate interpretation of a story. course, there are always areas which maybe are not explored. This is because a fictional text or fictional texts cannot have meanings totally independent of their readers. Meanings are not independent. Meanings are related to you, how you see it. Meanings are yours. Meanings are yours. You understand? You say, well, to me, I feel this. But to you say, oh, to me, doctor, etc. So really, this is what I'm saying. Meanings have something to do with you personally, the reader, or the real man or woman reading the text. Okay? Really, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I'm saying the act of reading is in many ways an interaction between the story, the author, and the reader. Yeah, this is the interaction. You know, there's always this maneuvering interactive process between me, the text, and the author. The author is dead. I have the text. Also, the text could be ugly, okay, could be difficult, okay, could be colloquial, could be formal, could be strange, could be symbolical, blah, 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 blah. So it's really to do with me, the reader, me, the real person. And that's why I say texts can have different meanings for different individual cultures or times. That's why we have, for example, today, we read Shakespeare, for example. We read Shakespeare, for example, today in a different manner than the English people, or how Shakespeare was read, for example, 200 years ago, or 300 years ago, or 400 years ago, and so on. So it depends on the culture, how you read English culture. They can't tell you this is wrong. You know, for example, you know, you as a student today here in Oman, you say, oh, doctor, I don't like this story. Why are you teaching this story to us? We are here, young people in Oman. Why are you teaching us this text? We don't like it. Yeah, fine, absolutely. You are right to say this. You have the right to say this. You have the right to say this. But again, I say, okay, I'm doing it because of this and this and this. I see something, maybe you can't see it, but try to see what you can make out of it. What is your answer? What can you make out of it? And that's what I'm saying. Meanings are related to you individuals, to you cultures, to you, again, different people, and in different times. You know, in those days, in the past, they believed in this and this. Now we don't believe it. You see? And that's it. Okay, I think that's enough about that. Please, if you have any question, you can ask. Any question?
No, doctor.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, good. Now, I'll move on to our next item, which is, of course, to go to the examples. Remember, I gave you all this introduction in the last 3 weeks. Well, 2 weeks to be, well, nearly 3 weeks, 2 weeks and a half. It's a huge introduction, as you can see. But, well, maybe to you it's a huge, but really it's very, to me, I really summarized it a lot. I summarized it to make it understandable and clear to you. So we have all these elements of fiction, as I said, you really cannot separate them completely from each other. They are always interrelated, interconnected, and there's always in a story, you know, in a story, most of novels, all novels must have these elements of fiction, must have. You can't have a story without plot. You can't have a story without character. You can't have a story without theme. You can't have a story without narrator. you can't have a story without action and dialogue and so on. You see, they are really a must. They must be there. Otherwise, it's not story. You understand? So that's why I tried really to make it completely sort of, unified and comprehensive to you, to see what it is that we are really talking about here, how the action develops, how characters are made, what kind of characters, and so on. Please, in the exam, I'm going to ask you about these things, but you see, in the exam, I want you to give me your own evaluation, your own explanation, not just what you see in my page, not just what I said here to you in my lectures. Okay? I want you to give me your own feelings about things. That's really the idea, because here we are at university. We want to make people think and use their own sort of initiatives, and to use their own attitudes and opinions and so on. Don't worry, your opinion is respected. We respect our students' opinion, no matter what. You understand?
Yes.
Yes, doctor.
No comments? Happy? Okay.
Totally happy.
Okay. The next is, as I said, really we go to the parable. Have you read this, Yasuha?
Yes.
What do you think?
Well, it's a great one to have so many things to discuss.
Yeah. Do you agree with the father or with the son?
I think I see them in a different way. I don't see them like a father and a son. I think the father is the symbol for God, because at the Christian culture,
The symbol for what? The symbol for what?
God.
Oh, yeah, symbol for God. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So I think they mean that when you get lost or you leave the religion, you can come back, and God will be happy, and He will give you so many things that will make you feel that you are welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Yeah, Suha. What was it, Suha? Yeah. Because I'm looking at the screen. Suha speaking was?
Yeah, it's me.
Yeah. 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 Anybody else, boys and girls, have you read that? Boys? Really, it's a very interesting story here. Maybe, as you can see, I included for you the sort of I included the little interpretation at the end. Here, I wrote a little commentary, as you can see, some comments. Well, I took all these comments from other sources, really, and they are not mine, to be honest. I took most of these from other places, and really, yeah. So you can interpret this and explain this in a sort of contemporary way, in a worldly way, in an economical way, in a realistic way, and you can be like the other son, because here a father who has two sons, right? Yeah. So
Yes.
this is of course, remember, this is really a quotation from the Bible, and it's taken originally from the Bible. As you can see, this is exact quotation. And it's as you can see, something that you explain to people, to say, well, if you waste your money, if you take all your money and waste it, you should be punished for it, or you're responsible for that. So why should you be rewarded again? You know, when you think about it in terms of reality and in terms of real thing, you know, the father welcomed his son back because for him, he thought that his son was lost originally, because, you know, the story, I don't know if you, have you all read it, by the way? I don't know. Have you all read it, boys and girls? Please write in the chat. Have you read it all? Yeah. Okay. Okay. I will quickly. Well, not many people read it really. So let me quickly remind you of the story. Remember, it is a parable. Means very, very symbolical again. And here we say the symbolism or the allegory, which we said, you know, parable means you read something because you want to know the meaning behind it, because the meaning behind it, which is most important, the meaning, what symbolizes, not exactly what you see on the page. Here really is a story taken from the Bible. Notice, Jesus continued, there was a man who had two sons, as if really here you can see a quotation. Remember, uh, I'm not here really promoting any biblical stuff, but really this is the story, and this is the text I found from the textbook we have, and I copied it here. It's not really my choice, but you know, I was given this by the other professors, and they said they do this. And really it's quite interesting, because it is taken from a literary perspective, not from a religious perspective. We study it because it to mean to us something really literary. It's not religious in any way. And here you can see, as the narrator here, of course, we say here Jesus who is speaking. And he was saying there was a story, or he's telling the story of a man, you know, who has two children, two sons. The younger son said to his father, Father, give me my share of the estate. So he divided the property between them. You know, and I think sometimes people do this. Sometimes children, after a while, and I know people said this, I think there are people who say it, you know, they can't wait till their parents are dead to inherit them, because they say, well, I can't wait, I want mine now. So, you know, they ask their parents, give me my share. I think this is bad, even to say this to your parents when you are still young, and you ask your father to give you your share. You know, even this question itself, to ask your father to give you your share now, I think this is one of the terrible, I think, mistakes. And this is the big lessons that we have to learn. Not to ask our parents to give us what they will give us at the end after they die, you know? So the father, said, okay. So he divided his property between them. Not long after that, the younger son got together all he had, set off for a distant country, and there squandered his wealth in wild living. After he had spent everything, there was a severe famine in that whole country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to a citizen of that country who sent him to his fields to feed pigs. He longed to fill his stomach with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. So you see the idea. When he came to his senses, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have food to spare, and here I am starving to death. I will set out and go back to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. So he got up and went to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion for him. He ran to his son, threw his arms around him, and kissed him. The son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and against you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, quick, bring the best robe and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals to his feet. Bring the fattened calf and kill it. Then have a feast and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. So they began to celebrate. Meanwhile, the older son was in the field. When he came near the house, he heard music and dancing. So he called one of the servants and asked him, what was going on? Your brother has come, he replied. And your father has killed the fattened calf because he has him back safe and sound. The older brother became angry and refused to go in. So his father went out and pleaded with him. But he answered his father, look, all these years I've been slaving for you and never disobeyed your orders. Yet you never gave me even a young goat so I could celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours, who has squandered your property with prostitutes, comes home, you kill the fattened calf for him. My son, the father said, you are always with me, and everything I have is yours. But we had to celebrate and be glad because this brother of yours was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And this is, we say here, that's the end of the story. Yeah. As I said, from a real practical sense, in a real practical sense, as I say, there are really many meanings and, as I said, interpretations of this. You can take the opinion of the father and to say, well, you are a father and the feeling that you have for your children, no child maybe will understand the father's feelings unless or until they become fathers themselves. And I think that's true sometimes, really true, because children will never see exactly what their parents see. They will never. So here the son, look what, the language that he uses. the strong language he uses to his father, say, this son of yours, you know, the way he said that. And he used the word, bad words, or some kind of phrases that he said, you know, said, squandered your property with prostitutes, you know. So here, as I said, from a realistic perspective, from an economical perspective, from a materialistic perspective, from, as I said, a really real world perspective, you say, yeah, that boy got his share and he wasted it. He wasted it. Yeah. Abdullah. Abdullah.
Yes, doctor.
What do you think? Would you forgive your brother if it were your brother?
This is a difficult question, mister.
Okay, I know. Maybe. Yeah, really, it's a difficult thing, yes. But really here I'm saying, remember, in real life, you know, in real life, sometimes it happens all the time. Brothers get jealous of their brothers, you know, sisters get jealous of their sisters, you know, and you as a parent, as a father or as a mother, you have really sort of a difficult job to make a balance between your kids, especially when they grow up, you know. So this idea of balancing, here the father is using his own wisdom to say to his son, I know you are with me. All my property is yours. I'm not going to give your brother, you know, anything of yours. Now everything is yours. I'm happy only, I'm celebrating only because your brother now was dead and now is back again to life. So that's why. And as, of course, you know, the symbolism that, as I said, the story really means, in real sense, it could teach people the wrong lesson to say, well, if I'm again in this position, I would waste my money and then I will be rewarded by my father. My father will forgive me. You know, and we say, you know, parents forgive. Parents forgive. Yeah. And we say, you know, always we say, Allah Ghafurun Rahim. Allah la ilaha illallah Ghafurun Rahim, isn't it? Ghafurun Rahim. We think somebody is terrible, but you don't know who's going to be forgiven and who's not. You know, how do we know? How do you know that somebody you think is an ugly man? But you never know. You never know. So it's not your position to say, well, I will never forgive you, or I should whatever. So here, parents, as I say, the feeling of parents, the feeling of fathers, as maybe to go back to the question of the father to mean God here in the Christian sense, which is, of course, to our understanding is something else. Of course, you know, we don't believe in this, the whole idea of, you know, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. But the idea I'm saying here is the question of how you know, parents forgive. Normally, parents forgive because they are parents, because they are fathers, because they are mothers. Very rarely, very rarely, fathers punish their children for life. Very rarely. I've never heard, well, I don't know, but there are fathers, on the contrary, you know, on the contrary, there are sons who kill their fathers, but no fathers killing their sons, which is really terrible. You know, the idea here, really, I'm saying, this is the question, that the whole idea of being father is something really important in this story. Children will never understand the concepts and the feelings of fathers. And really, that's why here the story means a lot of stuff. And as I said to you in my you know, explanation, as you can see here, I gave a little, if you like, explanation, as you said, more commentary. Notice here, I think I mentioned a lot, well, notes, really tiny notes. But for example, here we say the father's critics say he was unjust. People who play by rules should see the rewards. Those who abandon the community, live according to their own reckless desires, should not get to come back and automatically reap the beauty or the bounty, sorry, of others' hard work. If you reward the younger brother, you signal that self-indulgence pays while hard work gets slighted. Well, some people may think this, as I said, practical people or realistic people, or people of the, for example, contemporary world, who think that this is reality. People have to work hard. If you don't work hard, you should not be rewarded, you know? So this, some people say, well, the father here was wrong to reward his son. I'm saying here that there are people who criticize the father, and this is what I'm saying. Again, the father's example is especially pernicious now. The critics continue. Jesus preached it at the time of the Pharisees in the overly rigid and rule-bound society. In those circumstances, a story of radical forgiveness was a useful antidote, and so on. So remember, according to the Bible, you know, this is a story being narrated by Jesus to teach his people, to say, well, you know, we should be forgiving. We should forgive. We should forgive. And I think that's really an important thing. Sometimes people can't forgive, you know? Yeah, there are people who say, well, I can't. Notice here, the idea is that today, for example, in a society, we live in a society in which moral standards are already fuzzy, in which people are already encouraged to do their own thing. We live in a society with advanced social decay. For example, with teens dropping out of high school, financiers plundering companies, and kids being raised without fathers. You know, the father's example in the parable reinforces loose self-indulgence at a time when we need more rule following, more social discipline, and more accountability. More accountability, not less. You know, to be responsible, to be accountable. to say what you do is your responsibility. Yeah, so in a modern sense, we say, yeah, okay. So I'm saying here, yeah, it is a valid critique. It's a real thing, absolutely. Bad boys should not be rewarded. Bad boys should not be rewarded. But again here, I would defend the father's example. Here, this is my own idea I'm saying. Again, and informed by a reading of somebody else's, again, who said, again, I'd even apply the father's wisdom to social policy making today, for example. People have to be forgiven, you know. We live in a divided society in which many of us in the middle or upper middle classes are like the older brother, and many of the people who drop out of school, commit crimes, and abandon their children are like the younger brother. In many cases, we have a governing class of elder brothers legislating programs on behalf of the younger brothers. The great danger in this situation is that we in the elder brother class will end up self-righteously lecturing the poor. You need to be more like us. Graduate from school, practice a little sexual discipline, work harder. Yeah, you know, we always do that. We want people to be good. And really, this is, of course, really this is the message here in this story. It's, remember, a parable. What does it tell you? What does it tell you? You know, it tells you a lot of lessons here about principles, about morals, about attitudes, about hard work, about responsibility, about respect, about care, and so on. You know, the way you look at your, you know, parents, it's to do with the children's position, father's position, and so on. Here again, what I say, the father also understands that the younger brothers of the world will not be reformed and rebound if they feel they are being lectured to by unpleasant people who consider themselves models of rectitude. You know, not everybody can be intelligent. Not everybody can be doctors. Not everybody can be engineers. Not everybody can be professors, you know? Yeah, society needs all of us. All of us. And each one of us has his own position. Each of us has his or her own position. And each one of us is important in his or her own position. You know, a worker in the field is as important as me as professor. He's important in his field. And I'll depend on him because he brings me the tomatoes and the potatoes and the wheat and the bread and the meat and everything. I can't live without him. I can't live without him. So this is the idea. Not all of us will be engineers and doctors and professors and ministers and blah, 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 blah. Really, that's the story. We should not be talking to each other in a sort of, you know, really, you know, sort of snobbish and lecturing way. We don't lecture people. We don't lecture people. We don't patronize people. We don't say, do this and don't do that, and do this and don't do that, and so on. And, you know, we do not dictate people. Fathers do not dictate. We sometimes do it for a little while, and that, but then children have to do their own. Children do their own. And I think this is the idea here, really. Of course, again here, we say father the father teaches that rebinding and reordering society requires an aggressive assertion. You are accepted. You are accepted. Yeah. Failures, people who do not succeed, it doesn't mean that they are bad. Doesn't mean they are ugly. Doesn't mean we should kill them. We should punish them. We say, okay, you are part of society. We accept you. And that's the idea, saying we should say to them, okay, I will take you back. You are my son, and I accept you. You are an ugly son, but I accept you. Yeah. You are accepted. You are accepted. It requires mutual confession and then a mutual turning towards some common project. Why does the father organize a feast? You know, why did he kill the fattened calf? Because a feast, again, here we say in normal, maybe religious or ritual, about food, isn't it? But in real life, it's really about membership. It is about membership. It is about brotherhood, membership, community. People sit together and eat. That's why we say, Bil-Eid, as we say, during Al-Eid, people come together. This togetherness, really Al-Eid and the feast is togetherness. And that's why people, families unite and sit together and they have a lot of meat and they eat a lot of meat and they slaughter, lambs and calves and whatever, because the meaning and the symbolism of this, isn't it? So really, this is the idea about membership, about community. It asserts your embedded role in community project. And I think that's it. Any question about that, boys and girls? Hello?
No, Doctor, no question.
Yeah, so really this is the symbol here. As I said, that's what we mean parable. So you are told a story, but there are the meanings and the interpretations are always, at the back of it. Maybe could be very close and could be very far away from the text. And that's what really we mean here. Yeah, I don't know. I think two people. Let me check something. Okay, let me check because I think I have two people away. I will read the names, please, and you can say whether you just tell me you are here or not. Just say yes. Muhammad Saeed Ahmed Rawahi. Muhammad Rawahi. So here, Saud.
Yes, doctor, I'm here.
Ahmed Khalfan. Ahmed Khalfan. If you
Yes,
are
doctor.
not,
Yes.
if you can't speak right, and so, huh?
Yes, doctor.
Funoon?
Here, doctor. Here.
Yeah, okay. Funoon? Funoon. Ahmed Salim?
Yes, doctor.
Marwa? Buthaina?
Yes, doctor.
Halim?
Yes, I'm here.
Noor?
Yes.
Abdullah Muhammad? Jum'a?
Yes, doctor, I'm here.
Razan?
Yes, doctor.
Sumaya?
Present, doctor.
Yeah, okay. Idris?
Yes, doctor.
Very good. So I don't know these people. Anybody knows Muhammad? Do you know anybody? Muhammad Saeed al-Rawahi? Do you know him? Anybody knows him? Do you know him? Okay. Right, let me go back to my, yeah. Okay, yeah, good. Let me go back to my text, and I think I'll move on. I still have about 20 minutes. I'll move on to the next thing, which is the fable. Now, the fable is something similar, really, to the parable. As I said, you can see, the parable is not a short story. It's not a short story. Parable could be anything, really, any piece of writing, not just maybe religious, or there are different types of stories, they are like stories. As you can see here, the father and his son. It is a story, in a way. But here the question really is more sort of direct than a real fictional story with dialogue or with characters arguing or talking and so on. So in a fable, I think we have the same. A fable is more like a short story, really. It is more like a short story with characters and, narrators and characters and so on. But you see, fables normally, fables are used, for example, well, most of them are made of or by animal characters. They are written by, of course, writers, and they use always animal characters. They use animals, well, most of the time. I'm not saying all the time. Most of the time, they use animal characters, really to express things in a very, really funny way sometimes. And here, really, the fable in English, as you can see, I gave you an introduction. In English, we have fables. In Arabic, we have fables. And I think we have a lot of fables in Arabic, especially in the old Kalila wa Dumna, for example, by Ibn al-Muqaffa stories. And in the old Arabic literature, we have so many examples of that. And even in modern stuff later on, we find a lot of stories which are symbolical and really, again, in the same way, fable-like. In modern English, we have some writers, well, not just modern, maybe in contemporary or modern or even 200 years back or even before, always we had writers using animal characters. As we said, since we have animal characters and these characters have to speak, they use language. Otherwise, they can't be characters, because in a story, you need people to talk. You need people to talk. You need people, you need language, you need dialogue, you need speech. So here, even if you have animals, you still need to give these animals the quality to speak. And then you say, well, how can they speak? Well, in fiction, they can. You know, وقالت الدجاجة وقال الديك وقالت النعجة. Yeah, because writers can say that. We can't really tell them that this is not possible, you know, because, as I said, writers do that because, as I say, because they want to have a story. They want to have a story. Now, in English here, really, the best example actually is taken here from Aesop. And Aesop was a Greek man, really. I don't know if he was a real man or not, but some people think that he was even not real. You know, even the name Aesop was not even real. I don't know, really. This is really funny to argue this, to say that even Aesop was, you know, a created image. But we study in English literature many times, and we go back to the Greek to the original fabulist, the real man who really originated the word fable was Aesop, and in Arabic we call him Ya'sub. You know, we say Al-Ya'sub or Ya'sub. I don't know. This is if you have heard. Anybody heard of Ya'sub? Maybe
No.
not. Maybe not. Yeah, because really this is a strange name. Even the way they Arabized it to make it Arabic, and his name is Aesop, right? Aesop. He was really an amazing figure. Was a Greek fabulist and storyteller, credited with a number of fables, now collectively known as Aesop's Fables. Really, today, you know, it's a collection, a huge collection called Aesop's Fables. Tales, stories, you know, fables, hikayat, qisas, riwayat, hikayat, you know. Although his existence remains unclear and no writings by him survive, numerous tales credited to him were gathered across the centuries and in many languages in a storytelling tradition that continues to this day, you see? So really many people still think, you know, I think, you know, I don't know, that even he was not a real man. I don't know. Now, many of the tales are characterized by animals and inanimate objects that speak, solve problems, and generally have been or have human characteristics. As I told you, of course, as I said, I think I mentioned this before, I said characters have to speak. Even if they are animals, they have to speak. They have to talk, they have to, you know, think, and they have to, etc. And, you know, this is really the funny thing about it. The fables attributed to Aesop were actually composed over the course of many centuries. Aesop is a semi-legendary figure. You see, so this is really, again, I got this from references, really, to be honest. This is not mine again. This is he's a semi-legendary figure. Maybe, you know, could be not real man, as I said. About whom various stories have been told. All that can be known with many or with any certainty about Aesop is that he was a Phrygian slave, you know. So he was one of those Greek men on those islands, and he was a slave by a king. And that king, you know, enslaved him or imprisoned him. And you know, the story about it is really funny. And maybe this is, of course, an old story, if you like, about him, but that's really not important to us. So the details about his life, you can find it everywhere on the internet. You can Google his name and you can see what he is, for example, or what he has done in real life. Just a second. Yeah. So here I say the story is told here by the historical Aesop appears to have been a mix of legends. Again, people doubted that these stories are all his. Are they really his? Or they were written by some other people? But again, as I think this is again not very clear. But again, to be honest, again, that's not important to us. But here in the introduction, I say, or I quoted this for you to say, it was really maybe a mixture of legends, a mixture of myths and political parables. Even in antiquity, however, it was the fable, and in particular the animal fable, with which Aesop became most closely associated. And many people think there are many others which were not written under the name Aesop. More than 100 animal stories are now attributed to him. Aesop himself was probably responsible for a few of the tales that bear his name. He never wrote a book. Again, I'm not saying this myself. I took all this from the net, from every sources, many sources. His stories belong to the oral tradition. Even as late as the Renaissance, numerous moral fables were still being attributed to Aesop. Again, you know, how can you give a story, you know, for example, a story in the Renaissance, and the Renaissance was around 1300, and then you go back to before Christ, because according to, as you can, well, nearly before Christ, you know, Aesop, nearly as you can see, more than that, 620 BC, you know. So it's very 500 years before Christ. So how can you give stories as old, maybe you go back 200 or maybe nearly 2,000 years back? So I'm not really sure whether this is true or not, but that's not really important here. People think, and they gave this title Aesop. You know, I don't know who really, because nobody is sure about that, really nobody. So we say here again, Aesop never wrote a book even. His stories belong to the oral tradition. Again, oral tradition. It was not written. So many of the fables that later, again, many of the fables that later ages believed were written by Aesop were actually the work of, here again I give names, Demetrius Flarirum or somebody, Phydarus or Babrius and etc. etc. I don't know. I mean, here again, this is not my idea, because they mention names who maybe could be the writers of these stories. I have no idea, and that's not important to us, really. So the most important here, the last paragraph, I say, the most examples of Aesop's fables, each animal symbolizes a different human virtue or vice. And I think this is the idea, because these fables are important because you always have a message. Behind each story, there is a message, one message, could be two messages, but mainly one message. Behind these stories, behind these fables, there is a message, there is a lesson. And the lesson is not stated. The lesson is not stated, it's not there, it's not clear. You have to guess it. You have to infer it. I'm saying here, they always, they have a virtue. They talk about a human virtue or about a human vice, right? The fox, for example, the fox represents cunning. The ass represents stupidity. The lion represents ferocity. The ant, industry. The grasshopper, laziness. The crow, vanity, and so on. So you can see here all these animals, and they always symbolize something for the writer. And this is what I'm saying about symbolize. So by placing these creatures in different combinations, the fables comment upon the varieties of human nature and criticize human foibles. For example, in the ass, the fox, and the lion, a fox offers to betray his friend, the ass, to the lion, provided that the lion promises never to harm the fox. The lion agrees to his proposal, and the ass foolishly falls into the trap that the fox prepares. Once the ass is safely ensnared, however, the lion turns and attacks the fox, proving that those who act with treachery are themselves often betrayed. As we say in Arabic, من حفر حفرة لأخيه وقع فيها. من حفر حفرة لأخيه وقع فيها. That's it. Yeah. You see, so this is really the idea. Those who act with treachery are themselves often betrayed. الخائن Allah بيبعت له مين يخونه. The same thing. That's the idea. So really the idea that there are always, messages and stories, and I think this is the lovely thing about these stories. I will leave you with this here today, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I will stop here and I will continue next time. If you have any question, please ask. And that's it for today. And I'll stop recording.